I
So,
still hear the Spanish translation on the English channel.
right, I suppose good morning, participants. Maybe you'll bear with us for a minute while we just fix the interpretation channels. We do have interpretation in English, French, Spanish, I guess in French and Spanish.
Could the Spanish interpreter please join the Spanish channel? Thank you.
Anna, we are hearing from you in English channel. Let me go to Espanol channel once again. Hi, can you speak in? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And then how about Anna? Yes.
Right.
But yeah. However, yeah, for the first 2 minutes, your voice was from English channel. Please use this channel. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, Jinyang, actually, for that. And Ishani, I believe we're all good to go. And technology is always like that. These things happen. So once again, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Very welcome to all of you for joining this webinar. Actually, that little pause did us good because I think I can see the number of participants just jumped and shot up. So very well welcome to everybody who's joining us now to this webinar where we're going to be discussing the Fund Strategic Results Framework and Guidance Document. As I was saying before, my name is Farai Madziwa. I coordinate the Readiness Program for the Adaptation Fund. My colleague Neha Sharma, who's the Results Impact and Knowledge Lead at the fund, will be moderating this webinar for us. I will briefly maybe speak through the list of speakers for this webinar. This webinar is going to be 1 hour long. We will try and end on time and promptly. Just to be respectful of everybody's time. So as I mentioned, Neha Sharma, who's our Results Impact and Knowledge Lead, will be moderating this webinar, and she will give a few remarks to welcome all of you and the background to this topic in a moment. We also have Jessica Kyle, who is the Director for ICF, and she will go through the overview of the Strategic Results Framework. We tend to call it SRF for short, in the guidance document. And then Justice Musa, who's a climate change specialist at the Adaptation Fund, will get into a little bit more depth and talk about how to apply the SRF in practice, and the practical implications of that. At the end, we will have a question and answer session. So as the speakers are talking, if you have a burning question, I encourage you to type it in the chat. I think we will move, because we only have 1 hour, we will move from one speaker immediately to the next. And please keep your questions for the Q&A session at the end. But type them into the chat box so long as the speakers are going through their content. And during the Q&A, please feel free to also click the hand icon and raise your hand if you want to take the floor, and we'll be happy to unmute for you and engage with you. So a few housekeeping rules just before we start. I might have alluded to this already, but just so everybody is aware, this webinar is actually being recorded, and we will post it on the Adaptation Fund's website after the event. Please keep your microphones muted, just so we do not have some background distractions and noise interfering with the proceedings. And as I mentioned, this webinar, please feel free to engage in either English, Spanish, or in French. We do have interpreters connected, and that would be okay in whichever language you're comfortable with. And as I mentioned, if you wish to take the floor during Q&A, please click on the hand icon and we'll give you the floor. And it would be lovely to see your faces as well, as this is a webinar, so please feel free to also turn on your cameras when you engage. We have already joined, so I think some of the stuff on here about joining and putting your name are already covered. So lovely to see all of you who have joined. I think some names I'm familiar with and we've met already, and we have some new names connected as well. But looking forward to a great webinar, and without further ado, Neha, over to you.
Thank you, Farai, and then a huge thanks to Jin Young as well for her help in organizing this webinar along with other colleagues. Jin Young, if you don't mind transitioning to the next set of slides.
This is being uploaded. Yeah, so you can start. Yeah, thank you. You can start like wherever one while this is uploading.
Sure. Great. Yes, it takes the time to transition. So welcome everybody. As introduced, I'm Neha Sharma. I lead the results impact knowledge work at the Adaptation Fund. This webinar is to report back in some way because we had collected input from the implementing entities of the Adaptation Fund on a draft of the Strategic Results Framework guidance document that we have now shared with you. And we have incorporated your feedback and finalized the document, which in the invite you must have seen a link to it. I will say that that link will be updated only because there were a few images that are from our implementing entities that we haven't fully given the credit to. So we're just revising that, and that link will be updated. But the content is all final in the version that you see. So if you go to the next slide, that's the agenda that Farai has already walked us through. But essentially, we want to just remind you about what is in the why we revised the SRF and what happens from here and how are we going to. So in the next slide, you see the board decision that's associated with the revised strategic results framework or the SRF. And essentially the board approved the changes and asked us to revise the associated project performance reports or PPR templates and develop this guidance document that we have now shared with you, and that these documents will come into effect 3 months after we share them with you. We haven't formally shared the PPR revised templates and the guidance document with you yet. So you're going to get an email from us shortly after this webinar with these documents and then a date on when these become effective. Next slide, please. Again, just to remind you why we made revisions to the SRF, they were mostly based on input that we were receiving from our board and the implementing entities that are using the previous version of the SRF. We wanted to align better with the medium-term strategy of the Adaptation Fund and with global developments such as the Global Goal on Adaptation. We are not using the GGA indicators that are not yet fully being endorsed by the countries. This is not what this framework does, but it looks at the thematic areas under the GGA and tries to see where we can disaggregate our current indicators per those thematic areas. We also tried to reflect better the focus of the medium-term strategy on locally led adaptation and innovation. So we made some changes to indicators associated with those two areas of our work to make sure that we're collecting information and truly capturing the good work that's happening in countries related to LLA, locally led adaptation and innovation. We have stuck to the flexibility that the implementing entities have asked for and introduced even more flexibility so that local conditions really drive the contextual use of the indicators. And so we deleted a lot of the repetition, removed the redundancy. There were some indicators that we were really just not getting information for because of the way they were framed or because the units of measurement that we had previously defined were very difficult to capture. And we have made those changes based on feedback from the entities. So next slide. So essentially in the revision process that we undertook, we retained the core structure. So the goals, the impact statement, and the outcome areas are all the same, they're unchanged. We reduced the total number of indicators from 33 to 28. We introduced more clarity in wording, we removed redundant indicators, as I was saying. The reporting requirements have not changed. So the minimum requirements for reporting are still the same. And because we do need to report up to the board, there is some portfolio level aggregation, and our intention to do this and the way in which we do this is also the same. We have not changed anything to for example, aggregate more indicators. We've maintained the requirements that were there in the previous SRF. Next slide, please. So this brings me to the purpose of the SRF guidance document. We basically developed this guidance document to support the application of the revisions to the SRF. So it provides a comprehensive overview of the revisions and the overall results-based management system of the Adaptation Fund. And it reiterates the minimum requirements, which again, as I said, have not changed, but we put them here in a more clear way. It explains how to develop, monitor, and report, and then communicate these results against the SRF. And it takes a principles-based approach. And this was quite important to us because, again, we want to retain the flexibility that is required by the IEs when they look at contextually driven measurement. So they will, again, pick and choose the relevant indicators, and they will develop project-specific indicators as well, in addition to aligning some of their indicators to the fund level SRF. So it's a principles-based approach. It's not very prescriptive. And all the documents that we're sharing now will supersede the previous guidance that was provided. This was many years ago, so it was anyway a bit dated. Next slide, please. And I think with that, I'm going to hand over to Jessica Kyle. Jessica Kyle is the director at ICF, a consultant firm that we had engaged to help us develop this guidance document. Their experience across the climate funds was really helpful in getting us to this point. Jess will take us through the guidance document and its different elements. So Jess, over to you.
Thanks, Neha. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Next slide. So as Neha said, we have updated, consolidated, and clearer guidance in this new document. So it replaces previous guidance that you may be familiar with. This includes the methodologies for reporting the core impact indicators, the project level results framework and baseline guidance document, and of course the PPR, the results tracker guidance document you can see on the left here, into one consolidated piece of guidance that you've now received. Next slide. So just a brief overview of what's in the guidance. As Neha said, this hasn't significantly changed, but it's been revised for clarity and concision. So in chapter 1, you have a brief overview of this guidance document, a roadmap of where to find information, hyperlinks so that you can jump around easily to access what you need to access. In chapter 2, you have an overview of the strategic results framework, the SRF. So this describes the Adaptation Fund's overall approach to results-based management, introduces some of those key monitoring and reporting terms like activities, outputs, outcomes, impacts. This is also where you'll find the revised SRF table that was board approved with all of those expected results and associated indicators. In chapter 3, this remains where you'll find, detailed guidance on how to apply the SRF. So the summary of requirements, roles and responsibilities for the Adaptation Fund Board Secretariat, and for implementing entities, how to apply the SRF, how to use the SRF during project design, including guidance on how to develop a project level results framework that aligns with the SRF, new templates for results frameworks to support consistency and quality, best practices for planning and budgeting for monitoring and evaluation. It also includes guidance on how to use the SRF as you move into project implementation. So procedures for implementing entities to report against those indicators, how you can use monitoring and reporting data for project level adaptive management. And lastly, we've added a description of how the Secretariat uses that SRF data. So how that data is aggregated for fund level results reporting, help better clarify the purpose and the use of this reported data. And then in the last chapter, in chapter 4, this is where you'll find each of those indicator reference sheets. So specific sheets, and we'll get into these a little bit more, for the Adaptation fund for the number of beneficiaries indicator, for indicators by strategic outcomes, and those suggested categories for disaggregation, all of which flow into the updated PPR. And then annexes at the end, which we'll also come to, but a glossary of key terms and some enhanced practical guidance on the beneficiaries indicator. Next slide. So in chapter 4, these are the indicator reference sheets. So this is where you'll see detailed guidance on the unit of measurement, definition of key terms, the methodology for measurement, suggested disaggregation categories, guidance on baseline and target setting, the reporting frequency, and clear explanations of how indicators link to one another, so you can avoid double counting or clearly understand when reporting on one indicator should likely trigger reporting on another indicator. The core indicator reference sheets are blue for ease of navigation. The strategic outcomes and outputs are in green, as you can see here. Next slide. As Neha mentioned, this was a consultative process to develop and finalize the guidance. We received really helpful input from implementing entities through several consultation webinars, through written comments, through consultations we had individually, and all of this is reflected in the final guidance. Some of the sort of highlights of the guidance that we received from IEs was around maintaining the proposed minimum number of SRF indicators that are required. So that guidance has been clarified, really just to enhance the clarity of it, but to retain the same spirit from the previous guidance. We maintained reporting on SRF indicators at 3 times throughout the project cycle. There had been a question about whether that might move annually. It did not. We've refined the terminology used to align project-specific and SRF indicators, so project outcomes mapped to SRF outcomes, for example. We've maintained the approach of mapping project-specific indicators to the SRF indicator, developed an updated table for how that might be done, and also at the request of implementing entities provided a template for a results framework that could be used for project proposals, both for project-specific results frameworks and for the SRF. Next slide. So just a couple of updates that I think are notable and worth highlighting here. As you digest the indicator reference sheets, you may notice others, but some things to clarify. As Neha mentioned, there are now updated disaggregation categories that help the Adaptation Fund better align with GGA and the way that it's thinking about disaggregation. So that includes thematic sectors, social categories, climate hazards, administrative and settlement levels, types of natural resources like terrestrial, inland, water, mountain, marine, these sorts of categories, so that your reporting can be better aligned with GGA. In some of the indicators themselves, a few things to highlight. The early warning system indicators now are more aligned with more recent guidance around SENDE and early warning for all frameworks and methodologies that just simply didn't exist when those indicators were first developed a decade or so ago. We've done a bit of separation. The physical asset core indicator is now more squarely focused on physical assets. There's a separate indicator for development services. And as Neha mentioned, there are new innovation indicators under Strategic Outcome 8 and a couple of new LLA indicators as well. Next slide. I also just wanted to highlight what's now available in Annex 2. This is substantially expanded and practical guidance on the number of beneficiaries indicator. It retains the conceptual basis from the previous approach, so you'll certainly recognize that. But we've developed a more detailed and practical guidance here to support project teams as they're grappling with this indicator. This was developed, as Neha alluded to, in collaboration with the other multilateral climate funds in an effort to, improve harmonization of these approaches across the funds. So it includes things like guiding questions when you're assessing, targeting and intensity dimensions, questions that project teams can ask themselves to help assess, is this targeted or not targeted? Is this low, medium, or high intensity? It also includes a table of concrete examples of common adaptation project activities and how they might be assessed against those targeting and intensity dimensions, as well as a description of the rationale for how those assessments might be made. They're certainly not meant to be prescriptive. They're illustrative so that, project teams can take inspiration from that principles-based approach, but interpret it, in their own project and local context. And this annex also provides more detailed guidance on how to avoid double counting, and also how to treat people that are covered by early warning systems, since that approach differs a bit from past guidance as we've talked about in some of the previous webinars. I think that does it for me. Next slide. Yes, thanks.
Thank you very much, Jess. And before I pass on to Justice, who'll take us through some of the practical implications of applying this new guidance document, I also wanted to mention that the number of beneficiaries indicator, the revised work that you see, which still remains true to how we were coming up with the measurement of that indicator before, but it's also based on joint work that the multilateral climate funds have done together. So the SIF, the GEF, the FRLD, and the GCF and the AF, of course, work together over multiple workshops to come up with this guidance that you now see. And this similar approach is also being used by the GEF and GCF and potentially by the SIF and the FRLD. So we're trying to create more consistency in the way indicators that are common to all the climate funds are being implemented on the ground. And this number of beneficiaries principle-based approach is one attempt to do so. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you so much, Jess, for taking us through the guidance document. Justice, I'm going to hand over to you for the next few slides.
Good day to all of you. Thank you very much, Neha, for the introduction. I will be taking you through how to apply the revised SRF. I'll build on what Neha and Jessica has already said, so it's not going to be a lot of slides. Next. So how will we transition to the revised SRF in terms of application? So as Jessica rightly said, the same SRF for all the projects. So both projects that are already under implementation and projects yet to be submitted to the Adaptation Fund. That means that if you have project already under implementation, you need to submit a PPR. Once you log on to the Financial Intermediary Fund platform, you would see the new PPR template that reflects the changes that has been made. Indeed, your workload is reduced because the number of indicators has reduced to 28, which used to be more than 30. So you are not going to see new indicator that you need to struggle with in terms of reporting on. All the indicators that were approved in your projects are already in there, just that some of them might have been dropped. So you are not required to do any extra work regarding that. What we have done, based on what Neha and Jessica has already said, based on the feedback that we've collected from you for the past 17 years, we've used it to be able to revise to make the work very easy, to be able to collect the data on the ground and report to us. The second is a streamlined reporting requirement. Project will stop reporting on indicators that are not part of the revised, strategic resource framework. So if you have an indicator that is already in the project and you go onto the system and you do not find that indicator, It's already dropped from the revised strategic result framework, which we have given to you. So you don't need to report on that. No rebasing needed. It means that your indicators, your baseline, you don't have to go back to do any rebasing. All that you need is to continue to report based on the information that you have, the indicators that has already been approved in the project, and you do not need to do any rebasing. Then context sensitive. As Jessica said, there has been a lot of disaggregation that you see in the new SRF. And this disaggregation, you should not worry about it. If your project as it was approved, there wasn't disaggregation and you'll not be able to collect such disaggregated data, report on what you'll be able to report. So it's very context sensitive, it's project sensitive. What is possible is what you are going to report on. Do not be challenged that this new disaggregation has been provided in the SRF, and for that matter, you must. But we encourage that if you be able to have that data, provide that data, because it helps in identifying the various vulnerabilities and what action we're taking to be able to respond to those vulnerabilities. So disaggregation really helps us in terms of our reporting and also in terms of supporting adaptive management processes. So if you can, it is encouraged to report on. But if you do not have such data, you should not be worried about it. Next. How to apply the revised SRF in terms of minimum requirements. Jessica has already said this. The minimum requirement has not changed, but the revision tried to bring more clarity to project developers and PPL submitters. So all projects must monitor and report against at least one core indicator and one other indicator, if relevant, especially if the project has an indicator. For all projects, you report on beneficiaries because all projects will have beneficiaries. So that core indicator will be reported on. But if the project is also providing early warning system or the project is on natural resources and ecosystem, then you are required to also report on one more core indicator. This will enable portfolio-wide reporting. All projects are expected to report on one core indicator, that is on beneficiaries. And if the project is on early warning system, of course, then you also report on people covered by new or improved early warning system. Also, you need to report on other relevant indicators. Regarding the outcome and output indicators, you need to report on one SRF outcome indicator and one corresponding output indicator. Projects are further encouraged to report on all core indicators and outcome areas that are relevant to the project activity. If the project activity are relevant to the SRF outcome that have a core indicator 1, 4, 5, 6, or 7, projects are expected to report on those applicable core indicators. So nothing new, but this brings more clarity. You used to report on one core indicator and any other indicator that is relevant in terms of the strategic results framework, and that is basically what you are supposed to do. There's also clarity in terms of one strategic outcome indicator and corresponding output indicator that you need to report on. And we have also separated beneficiary in terms of the general beneficiary and beneficiary that are covered under early warning system. That also brings more clarity. The reason why we've done this is that I'll give you a typical example. We have a regional project, and the regional project is providing early warning system to 2 countries. And the project says that it will cover the entire population of the country. So you take one single project and the total beneficiary in terms of adaptation fund aggregated resource is about 80 million. But if you take the entire portfolio over the past 17 years of about 200 projects, and it's not up to 80 million. So it is important that we distinguish between general beneficiary and beneficiary that are covered under early warning system. Next. And I saw a question in the chat already regarding the revision to the results framework alignment table. The previous alignment table, you realize that you were supposed to report on the objective, then the objective will have its corresponding indicators, then you align with the fund strategic results framework outcome area. Then you come to the second section that you report on outcome with the corresponding outcome indicator and how that also corresponds with the strategic results framework outcome area, then the output, indicator. We have made revision to this. So what you see here is that we have cut out the objective. Nothing changes. You are still supposed to report on the project outcome indicator and the corresponding adaptation fund strategic results framework fund level outcome indicator, which is the first part you see in the table. Then the second part, you are supposed to focus on just the output of the project, the output indicator, and how that corresponds with the SRF fund level outcome output indicator. So it has been made more easier. We have just reduced the workload in terms of repeating most of the things that you have already captured in the project document. So only the objective has been removed and nothing has really been taken out of the alignment table. So it reduces the work burden, and it also allows this to be properly fit in the project document, because if you add the objective one more column, it even increases the width in terms of presenting this in the project document. Next. In terms of rolling out the revised SRF, we will share the documents. As Neha indicated in the beginning, we've made few revisions to it in terms of giving credit to our implementing entities' pictures. So we'll be sharing the final document with you alongside updated PPR templates to all implementing entities. In that circulation, we will also indicate the dates that the SRF will become effective. So if we submit it to you today, then 3 months from now, it become effective. If we submit it to you next week, 3 months from then, it become effective. In terms of application, IEs are encouraged to use the updated SRF in new proposal submissions. Projects that have already been submitted, you are not supposed to use the revisions, but you are encouraged if you'll be able to use it. You've gotten comment from us and you are making revisions to it, and you would be able to use the revised SRF alignment table. It will be very helpful. In terms of help, we will establish a help desk support for about 6 months, starting from now. So if you need any further explanation, any technical support to be able to report on in terms of existing projects that you need to submit PPR to us, a project that you have already submitted, that you have received comments on the resource framework, on the monitoring and evaluation budget session, please write to us. You should be able to contact any of us within the Secretariat, and we'll be able to put you in touch with ICF to respond to your comment. Next. So the help desk, what is it? It's basically supposed to support services that a support service that provide answers to implementing entities specific questions on applying the revised SRF for both existing projects and new proposal development. All matters relating to the revised SRF and guidance documents, including new proposals where you have received comments. When is this available? The support is there for 6 months, starting from today. And few emails has been provided there. Myself, you can send email to me, Martina, Neha, or any other person in the Secretariat that you can, send email to. Please feel free to send email, and they'll direct the email to us, and we'll be able to respond to you. You can also contact the PPR reviewer. If you know the one responsible for your PPR review, please send email to the person directly, and the person will provide you the necessary guidance, or will set up a call between you and ICF to provide the support that you need. I think this brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for your rapt attention, and thank you for all the input that you've provided so far to getting us to this point. I believe that most of the redundancy that you had reported earlier on have been removed from the SRF. And as Neha said, this is also well aligned with what the other funds are doing. So we are reducing the bureaucratic processes that are often reported within the climate process. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you very much, Justice. And we can take down the slides and we'll open up for questions now. I hope it's clear how we're rolling this out, why the changes were made, how the guidance document can help, and how to apply it. But we'd love for you to raise your hand. I see this one pending question in the chat on, is there any impact on the PPR template updates on financial reporting? And I would like to confirm that there isn't. We focused more on the results side than the financial reporting side. But yes, colleagues, please feel free to post your questions or raise your hand. I'm going to have a quick look at the participant list to see if anybody has raised their hand. I don't see anybody here, but you can also just unmute. I see Laura Zank.
Yes, hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm working at UNESCO. I'm a grant officer at UNESCO in the Division of Partnerships. And I have a question concerning, the preparation of the budget. I just want to know if your help desk will assist eventually us at headquarters if we have any question on cost and fee, and because we're receiving the proposal from our field offices, and we know that also the things to articulate the cost and fees are being changed according to the implementing entity and implementing agency fees. I just want to know if it will be also in your scope. Thank you.
Thank you for that very important question. And we understand that the distribution of M&E costs has been quite confusing because of the way that it has evolved. We've made an attempt to clarify how to distribute these costs per different products required for both monitoring and meeting the requirements of the evaluation policy. However, if you continue to have questions with regard to the M&E budget, yes, you may contact us and we will support this. You do have an ongoing process with our programming colleagues on addressing the concerns and comments and the review process related to program proposal. So they should remain your first point of contact. However, we understand that the M&E budget piece is a bit confusing, and we're certainly willing to help support that. Laura, does that answer your question? I see your hand went down, so I'm going to.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you so much. I'm seeing if there's any other hands raised. Yes, Fatou. Yes, please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour. D'accord, merci. Bonjour tout le monde. Donc, c'est Fatou Bintou Traoré du Centre de suivi écologique, entité de mise en œuvre au Sénégal. Voilà, en ce moment, on est en train de développer le full proposal d'un projet. Et donc, on a utilisé l'ancien canevas du SFR. D'après les explications, donc, on suppose que on attend l'entrée en vigueur du SFR révisé pour pouvoir l'intégrer dans notre full proposal. Est-ce que à ce stade, nous, on peut anticiper et commencer à utiliser le SFR révisé, ou bien on attend le commentaire du secrétariat du fonds sur notre proposal pour pouvoir utiliser le SFR révisé? Voilà, c'était ça ma question. Merci.
Great. Thank you again for that really important question. And I wanted to clarify that we encourage you, in fact, to use the revised SRF and guidance document for any new project proposal and any new submission. Even though it technically goes into effect in 3 months, as we said, we want to start using the same results framework for all projects. And while you will not be, for projects that have already been approved or under implementation, you will not be expected to collect historical information. The templates that you will see online are already going to be aligned to the new SRF. So I hope I'm answering your question, but you are absolutely encouraged to start using the revised SRF and the guidance document for any new project proposal. You do not have to wait for our email. You do not have to wait for any further guidance from us. Fatou, I just want to confirm your question is answered.
D'accord, c'est noté, c'est noté. C'est bien, merci beaucoup.
Many thanks. Thank you. Deepa.
Hi, I'm Deepa from Easy Mode. So I have a question on SRF help desk. So I just want to be clear, is this help desk available only for 6 months or beyond that?
Thank you, Deepa, for that question. The help desk specifically is available for the transition to the revised SRF and the revised templates. So that is specifically available for 6 months. However, we have ongoing engagements through our PPR review processes, our project proposal review processes with all IEs, and that engagement will continue. So that is not going to stop. This is just an additional benefit or additional function, additional offer from our side to make sure that the transition is smooth. Because as you can appreciate, it's quite difficult to come up with a results framework for a diversity of adaptation contexts and projects. So there are bound to be some changes that are maybe not suitable in one or the other circumstance. And we want to make sure that the IEs feel supported and feel no pressure to make drastic changes. That's not what we're intending for the IEs to do. We're hoping for a smooth continuation of prior operations, and that's the intention of the help desk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa. Laura, your hand is up again. Is this an old hand or do you have a new question? It's down. So I was assuming that was an old hand. Let me check chat very quickly. Maximilian, would you like to speak to your question? I see it in the chat, but you're welcome to, but I wanted to invite you to unmute and speak.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes. My question is aligned to the one that the colleague from Senegal asked. It's so we have a set of concept notes and proposals that we are going to submit soon to the fund in the coming weeks. And as I understand, you are encouraging us to already apply the guidance and the new SRF. So this is well noted, understood. So my question then is, can you share those as soon as possible, or are they already available online? So that we are integrating this as soon as we can.
Thank you very much. And I see there are a few more questions related to this. A link to the guidance document that shares the revised SRF and the guidance for it was on the invite. However, it was added to not the first invite, but a subsequent invite. So it may have been easy to miss. Please look out for an email from us, which will come in the next few days, where we will share again the document. So you do not have to wait. The revisions to the SRF are board approved and they are already online, but I would wait for this guidance document because we've had to make consistent some of the numbering. So in short, you already have access to this. If you go back to the invite reminders, you will see a link to the document, but we will also be sharing this with you over email soon.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see if there's any other. There's a question on changes to the template for the pre-concept note. Abid, did you want to elaborate a little bit more, or should we take a crack at your question?
Now, whilst
Yes.
he prepared to, Naha already indicated, based on all the questions, that you are encouraged. I just want to re-emphasize that in no way should you cite that the application of the new SRF has delayed the submission of your project. So do not take it that the adaptation fund is saying that you should, a project that you intend to submit in the next coming weeks, you should apply the new SRF. No, I'm not saying you. I'm only.
Okay.
Yeah, just re-emphasizing that should not be the basis. If you can do it, you are encouraged to do it, but it is not a requirement that you have to.
Great. Thank you, Justice, for clarifying that. And then Abid, your question, there's no change in the template for the pre-concept notes. The pre-concept notes, as far as I understand, refer to the SRF. And then when they do, you would be encouraged at the moment to use the new guidance document, and then you will be mandated to use the new guidance document in a few months. So there's no change to the overall template for the pre-concept notes. There's a question by Eric. Could you please share a template in Excel spreadsheet format to facilitate a test? This is a very good suggestion. Let me discuss with the team here, because at the moment we do have the revised PPR template on Excel, and we are transferring that Excel to the online submission. But if we receive a request from the implementing entities to also receive the Excel spreadsheet, I'm not seeing a reason why we cannot share that with you. So I would think that's very possible from our side. All right, for concept notes that are already on review, should these also migrate to the new SRF? I also wanted to explain a bit what migrating to the new SRF might imply. Again, there's no change in the minimum requirement, and there's no change in the outcome areas. There's just a few wording changes and some unit of measurements to the indicators to make them easier to understand. So we think it's in everybody's interest to use the revised SRF because it's simpler and because it's meant to be easier to apply. So we think if you were to look at the revised SRF and look at your concept notes, there wouldn't be a large amount of changes that you would make in any case. So if these are simple in your context and in the project that you're proposing, I would encourage you to make those changes now. However, there'll be subsequent phases where you also have an opportunity to do so. Thank you, Jess, for your note on the pre-concept note. So I just want to open up maybe first to Jess and then to Justice to see if there was any question that I answered that you'd like to add to or correct any erroneous information that I may have accidentally provided, or add on to any question that was in the chat. So Jess, maybe over to you first and then to Justice.
Sure. Yeah, maybe I can just say a couple more words. Deepa had a good question in the chat at the beginning here about the SRF alignment table, and Justice spoke a little bit to it also in his slides, but maybe just to give a little bit of background here, as Justice said, it previously mapped a project objective to an SRF outcome and a project outcome to an SRF output. And so we put this specific question to implementing entities as part of the consultation process, and almost without exception, the response was, yes, that's been a bit confusing for us, and it would be, much clearer to have conceptual consistency across results level so that project outputs match SRF outputs and project outcomes match SRF outcomes, regardless of which results framework it's in. And so this is the change that has been flowed through to that SRF alignment table. We think this will help reduce the risk of misinterpretation, help improve consistency, in results chain, results level reporting and aggregation. I think that's it for me, Neha.
Thank you very much, Jess. Very helpful clarification. Justice?
Thanks,
Anything
Neha.
you'd like to add? Go ahead.
You answered all the questions. Regarding UNESCO, the SRF only bring clarity to how you do the budgets, but the implementing entity fee or executing entity fee has not changed. Just wanted to re-emphasize that there's no change in terms of how much is allocated to executing entity or implementing entity, but how you do the budget, we've attempted to bring more clarity so that you know that this goes to this place, this goes to that place. But if you need further help, as Neha said, we are always available to provide the support. Even beyond the 6 months, the Adaptation Fund is always readily available to provide support to you either at the project submission stage or doing your project implementation through email exchanges, or we can quickly jump on a call and provide you the needed support to make sure that you are able to apply the policies of the Adaptation Fund effectively. So please feel free to reach out to us at any point in time that you need support.
Thank you, Justice, for reinforcing that. And of course, all of you have access to my email. It's on the website. I communicate with many of you, but I've also put it in the chat. If you have any subsequent questions following this webinar, while you're looking at the documents, just don't hesitate. Please email me. So I've left my email in the chat as well, but I know you already have that, but just so that it's easily accessible. I'm looking at the participants list. I don't see any hands up, but if you do have a question and you weren't able to see the raise the hand or the chat function, you may unmute yourself now and just come in. I'm not seeing anybody here. And I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. I'm going to give one more minute in case somebody's typing furiously for it to show up. And while we're still waiting to see if there may be any hands or questions, I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce Christian, who's joined our team, Christian Fremer. Christian, sorry to put you on the spot. I hadn't given you a heads up, but I see your camera's on now. I'm wondering if you just want to say hello to all our implementing entities. Christian's joined our team about 2 weeks ago now. And he is joining the results-based management work of the results-based management area of the work that we do. And a lot of the implementing entities will start hearing from him and start working with him. But Christian, if you want to just quickly say hi.
Yeah, thanks so much, Neha. Yeah, really great to meet everyone and hear about some of the new work that's being done on the SRF and look forward to working with you all closely in the coming months.
Thank you very much, Christian. Okay. Well, that was your opportunity to post any more questions or raise your hand. I don't see any, so I'm going to assume we have answered all your questions and that you are all comfortable with the process that we're proposing. If you're not, don't worry, you can always reach out to us and we'll be here to help. So with that, I think I'll pass to Justice just to give us some closing remarks and then we can end a few minutes early.
Thank you very much for the efficiency. Most especially, we want to thank Jessica and her team for the excellent collaboration to get this work done. And also to thank the implementing entities. We wouldn't have been able to do this without you. Your support has been excellent throughout the years in terms of responding to the numerous surveys that we sent to you. I think for this particular work, it has taken over 2 years, almost 3 years, that we've come to you several times asking you to provide input. And all the time I see familiar faces here that you have always been providing this input to us, and we really appreciate that. We do listen to the climate change adaptation community in terms of the comment that they give, and we really want to be very responsive. So your comments and your responses to our service really help us to be able to build a secretariat that is quite efficient and that is responsive to your needs. So we look forward to continuous collaboration. Also to thank the secretariat team, Ishani and colleague Farai, Jihan, for the excellent organization of this. We are happy that you have been able to prepare a great webinar session. And to all of you, please take care of yourself, and we look forward to seeing you in other events. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And sorry, before you drop on, I was nudged by my team just to give you one more reminder that we will have an externally focused webinar at the end of this month. We just don't want you getting confused with that webinar invite and this one. So that webinar is going to be a panel discussion inviting other climate funds as well to discuss results-based management. And we will invite a few of you on this call to also speak during that online panel. But I was just nudged by my team to tell you that so that you're not confused when you get another invite for another SRF guidance webinar. That's going to be for a much broader audience, not just AF implementing entities.
Yeah, I was actually going to say.
Oh, Farai, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Neha. I mean, and sorry to take the floor once again, just to say thank you very much to Jin Yang, for supporting hosting this, and of course Ishani. But for comms team who are connected, I'm wondering if everybody who can, if you don't mind turning on your cameras, and then we're going to take sort of like a group picture, and this is like in 30 seconds. because as I mentioned, we are going to post the recording of this webinar online. And those of you who can, yeah, if you can turn on your cameras, and we'll be very happy to see your faces for posting on the Adaptation Fund website. So our comms team, if you're ready, please go ahead and snap a nice picture of everybody. And that's it. Yep, they said they're good. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good day, good evening. Thank you for joining the webinar. Goodbye.
Thank you.